What happens when a Pulitzer Prize-winning rapper storms his rival's hometown, performs a global diss anthem, and sends the entire arena into a standing ovation, while a Canadian politician accidentally gets caught in the lyrical crossfire and ends up apologizing to Drake on Instagram like he violated gang rules instead of just buying concert tickets? Baby, this is not just hip-hop beef. This is theatrical warfare, international comedy, and lyrical domination served up on a maple syrup-drenched stage. Kendrick Lamar just walked into Toronto, disrespected Drake in front of his own people, had the crowd dancing to Not Like Us, and then left the city glowing like he baptized it. And Drake? He's clapping back at politicians now? You cannot make this up. This episode is about to be wild, unfiltered, and so funny it should come with a warning. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive into this lyrical showdown, make sure you're tapped all the way in with me. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow Life Points with Ronda on YouTube at Life Points with Ronda, and subscribe to the Life Points with Ronda podcast, available on all major streaming platforms. You can always catch the full tea, the deep dives, and the healing moments at my official website, www.lifepointswithronda.com. And if you love what you're hearing, show your support by joining the fam on Patreon, where we go even deeper, unfiltered, and raw. Just search Life Points with Ronda on Patreon and unlock bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and exclusive downloads. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under Life Points with Ronda. And if you ever want to reach out, book a coaching session, or just say hey, email me directly at lifepointswithronda@gmail.com. Now, let's talk about how Kendrick Lamar just threw lyrical glitter on Toronto, and Drake turned into the Instagram mob boss of the North. You ready? Because it's giving Not Like Us in real life. So, we've officially entered the petty palace of 2025, where rap beef isn't just lyrical, it's political, geographical, and absolutely hysterical. Kendrick Lamar did what legends do. He didn't just drop a diss track. He flew into Toronto, Drake's own kingdom, performed Not Like Us in front of tens of thousands of screaming fans, got a standing ovation, and made the whole arena bounce like it was a victory parade. Oh, and that's not even the wildest part. Because while Kendrick was bodying beats, Drake was bodying DMs, sliding into a Canadian politician's inbox and calling him a goof for even attending the show. And what did this politician do? He went full hostage video mode, apologizing publicly and declaring his loyalty to Drake like he just violated some unspoken OBO code. You literally cannot write this level of hip-hop drama unless your name is Shakespeare or Shonda Rhimes. But let's also take a moment to honor Kendrick Lamar. This man is doing more than dissing. He's documenting a shift in power, standing fully in his artistry, and proving that lyricism, storytelling, and authenticity still have the power to command arenas, crash algorithms, and silence the noise. Whether you're Team Kendrick or Team Drake, one thing is clear. Kendrick did what needed to be done, and Toronto felt that quake all the way down to the CN Tower. So today, we're laughing, we're analyzing, and we're giving flowers to K-Dot for not only shaking up the game, but owning it with grace, grit, and a mic that stays lethal. To understand why Kendrick Lamar's performance in Toronto hit like a meteor, we have to rewind, not just to the recent rap beef, but to the legacy, the cultural weight, and the history behind this moment. Let's be clear. Toronto is Drake's city. It's more than his hometown. It's part of his brand. It's baked into his bars, his mood, his signature sound. Drake didn't just put Toronto on the map. He turned it into a hip-hop capital. OvoFest, the 6X, the CN Tower intros, he made it a character in his story. So, when Kendrick Lamar stepped onto the Rogers Center stage and performed Not Like Us, it wasn't just a diss. It was an exorcism in the house that Drake built. But here's the gag. This was also a reclamation of hip-hop values. Kendrick didn't just show up in Canada to perform. He came to remind the world what real MCing looks like. And the irony, it was Drake himself who once said, rap is like the WWE. Well, Kendrick flipped that script. What we're seeing now is less wrestling and more revolutionary war. A generational clash between lyricism and algorithms, soul and strategy, spirit and spectacle. Let's not forget, Kendrick has never been about quick clout. He's been building this for over a decade. From Section 8 to Good Kid, Mod City, from The Prophetic to Pimp a Butterfly to Damn. This man has served bars, wrapped in philosophy, wrapped in pain, wrapped in poetry. And while Drake mastered the art of consistency, hits, and emotional intimacy, Kendrick honed the skill of making every verse feel like scripture. And that's where the tension has always lived, not just between two men, but between two archetypes. Drake is the heart on his sleeve superstar, the emotional everyman turned mogul. Kendrick is the conscious disruptor, the prophet from Compton, the vessel of ancestral weight. So when Kendrick walked into the heart of Drake's territory and led an entire stadium in chanting, "They Not Like Us," we weren't just witnessing a rap concert. We were witnessing a historical shift. This was Malcolm at Oxford, Ali in Zaire, Baldwin in Paris. Kendrick used a stage built by his opponent to deliver a performance that rewrote the power dynamic of modern hip-hop. It was as if Tupac and Gil Scott-Heron had a baby, and that baby grew up and decided to body a beat in front of Drake's fan base, and they cheered him for it. And maybe that's what's got Drake on edge. Because when your hometown starts dancing to your enemy's anthem, that's not just a loss. That's a shift in culture. That's history unfolding in real time. And Kendrick, he's not watching it. He's authoring it. Moment by moment, Kendrick's Toronto performance really did shake the six. Let's make this plain. Kendrick Lamar didn't just step onto the stage at Toronto's Rogers Center. He claimed it. He walked into the very place where Drake is hailed as a local legend and completely flipped the energy without saying the man's name once. That's psychological warfare. That's lyrical chess. That's what mastery looks like when it's rooted in silence and precision. The stadium was packed to capacity. You could feel the tension. Fans weren't just waiting for a concert. They were waiting to witness a moment. Something historic, something that could only happen once. And Kendrick knew that. He knew the stakes. He knew the symbolism. That's why he didn't open. with height. He opened with poise. He stepped onto that stage like a man who had nothing to prove, but everything to say. When the haunting instrumental of Not Like Us dropped, there was a half-second pause. That kind of silence that happens before a thunderstorm. And then, boom, the beat hit, and the crowd responded like a wildfire had been lit from the floorboards to the rafters. Phones were already up. Faces were stunned. People started screaming, not booing, but cheering. In Drake City, the most surreal part, there were no apologies in the air. No, maybe he shouldn't play this. No awkward shifting in the crowd. Toronto stood tall as Kendrick rapped the opening lines. There was a strange, almost spiritual recognition that what they were witnessing wasn't about sides. It was about hip-hop being hip-hop again. Bar after bar, Kendrick rapped with an unshakable calm. Every syllable sliced through the air like a blade dipped in gasoline. He moved slowly, controlled, like a priest delivering final rites over a genre that had forgotten what lyrical war really looked like. And then he paused. No music, just Kendrick standing center stage, mic down, as the entire stadium chanted, "They not like us, they not like us." It wasn't just a chant, it was a ritual. You could feel the energy shift, like Toronto had made peace with something, that this wasn't betrayal, this was evolution. And Kendrick, he didn't flinch. He just nodded and smiled, but he didn't restart the track. He stood tall in silence as the crowd erupted into a roar of "one more time, one more time." The energy in the Rogers Center was electric. People were on their feet, screaming, crying, laughing, not because he ran it back, but because he didn't have to. That silence was the mic drop. Kendrick let the moment breathe. No filler, no fluff, no performance gimmicks, just presence, just power, just a man standing in the house of his so-called rival, receiving a standing ovation for calling the truth into the room. He absorbed the moment like a spiritual offering. Then, gracefully, he moved into his next track, leaving the crowd buzzing with a kind of awe that doesn't come from repetition, but from reverence. Those who were there knew he didn't need to perform "Not Like Us" again. The crowd had already canonized it. They screamed it for him. The city felt it. The silence between tracks spoke louder than any encore ever could. That wasn't just performance. That was presence. Now, let's be honest. What other diss record in rap history has ever been performed 3 times in a rival city to back-to-back standing ovations while the crowd chanted every word like a national anthem? That's not beef. That's a shift in gravity. And Kendrick knew what he was doing. No smoke bombs, no rants, no free promo. This wasn't about clout. It was about control. The control you get when you've studied the craft long enough to weaponize silence, breath control, and pacing like martial arts. As the 3rd round ended, Kendrick raised his fist once, not in defiance, but in reverence. And then he left the stage. Just like that. No fireworks, no message, no exit music, just silence. And that silence, it was louder than anything else that night. Toronto didn't boo. They clapped, they stood, they cheered, because in that moment, They weren't watching Kendrick diss Drake. They were watching Kendrick remind hip-hop who still had the crown. Not because he shouted the loudest, but because he never needed to. Just when you thought the Kendrick versus Drake saga couldn't get any wilder, enter Drake's Instagram DMs and a Canadian politician who, honestly, fumbled his street cred like it was a hot plate. Let's set the scene. As Kendrick left his lyrical footprints all over Toronto's Rogers Centre, someone spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Jagmeet Singh, the former leader of Canada's left-leaning New Democratic Party. Yup, that Jagmeet, known for his designer drip, progressive politics, and those barbershop fades. Now, normally politicians showing up to concerts wouldn't raise an eyebrow. But this wasn't just a concert. This was a sonic beatdown in Drake's backyard. And Singh, bless his heart, was there, bobbing his head like he didn't know a war was going on. That's like a Knicks fan showing up courtside in Boston, wearing a LeBron jersey. It's not illegal, but it's bold. And Drake? Oh, he wasn't having it. In classic 2025 fashion, the six. God didn't call a press conference. He didn't tweet. He did what Drake does. He slid into the DMs. And what did he say? You're a goof. That's it. 2 words. 1 emotional sucker punch. And just like that, Jagmeet Singh went from parliament to panic. Instead of brushing it off, laughing it off, or ignoring it like most politicians would, he folded like laundry. Singh issued a public apology that read more like a hostage letter than a PR statement. I went for SZA, not Kendrick. I shouldn't have gone at all. Ovo and Drake have lifted the city in ways no one else has. For me, it'll always be Drake over Kendrick. Sir, not you, throwing your own musical taste under the bus to make peace with Champagne Poppy. And the internet? Lost. Its mind. Memes flooded Twitter and X. People were calling Sing Drake's newest intern, the Minister of Apologies, and Canada's first political casualty in a rap beef. One user wrote, "Imagine getting checked by Drake over a concert and issuing a public apology like you skipped war duty." But while everyone was laughing at Singh's oops, I went to a disc concert tour. Another storm was brewing, and it had nothing to do with Kendrick. Because behind the scenes, Drake is currently facing a serious lawsuit. And it's not petty. It's dark. And it's putting a shadow over his legacy. Filed in May 2025, a multi-million-dollar civil suit was brought against Drake by a woman who alleges that during her time inside Drake's inner circle, she experienced a pattern of emotional coercion, sexual misconduct, and manipulation. The suit claims there are recordings, NDAs, and private footage, some of which is allegedly being reviewed in connection with ongoing federal investigations tied to other artists. Let's be clear. At the time of this episode, no criminal charges have been filed, but the allegations are detailed, disturbing, and eerily echo themes we've seen in other lawsuits surrounding music industry figures. It's got many fans wondering, is the King of Toronto more vulnerable than he lets on? That might explain why Drake is suddenly going hard online, clapping back at politicians, trolling with petty posts, and asserting dominance digitally while Kendrick does it on stage. Because what Kendrick did with Not Like Us wasn't just musical, it was strategic. He attacked the very image Drake's brand is built on, The nice guy, the emotional savior, the lover, the loner, the ultimate safe space in rap. And when Kendrick tore that image down, bar by bar, the world didn't flinch. It leaned in. Drake's response? DMing a politician like it's high school, and he got left on red. And it's worth asking, is this what insecurity looks like when power feels threatened? Because you don't DM someone you're a goof, unless something in your armor just cracked. So while Drake flexes on Instagram, Kendrick is flexing with audiences, stages, and chants that don't lie. And if this lawsuit continues to unfold, we may be seeing not just a battle for respect, but a reckoning with the very persona Drake's career was built on. This ain't just bars anymore. It's reputation warfare. And the scoreboard, it's starting to lean hard in Kendrick's favor. To understand the full impact of Kendrick Lamar's Toronto performance and why it sent tremors through the music industry and beyond, you have to look at his evolution. Because Kendrick didn't get here by accident. He's not a one-hit wonder. He's not an algorithm artist. He is the product of years of sharpening, suffering, witnessing, and waiting. He is not just a rapper. He's a cultural commander who mastered the art of silence and strategy in a genre that often rewards noise. Let's go all the way back. Before the Pulitzer Prize, before the Grammys, before the diss tracks. Kendrick Lamar Duckworth was just a quiet kid from Compton with a notebook and a dream. A child of the Reagan-era crack epidemic. A product of a neighborhood haunted by sirens and sacrifice. He saw what many of us only hear about in songs. Real pain, real consequences, real cycles of poverty and survival. And instead of glorifying it, Kendrick documented it. His 2011 breakout album, Section 8, was already dense with theology, philosophy, and socio-political commentary. By the time Good Kid, Mad City dropped in 2012, Kendrick had proven he could turn the story of a single day in Compton into a cinematic, multi-layered masterpiece. It wasn't just music, it was testimony. Then came To Pimp a Butterfly, arguably the most important hip-hop album of its decade. It was black, brilliant, uncomfortable, poetic, prophetic. He channeled the ghosts of Gil Scott-Heron, Nina Simone, and Tupac Shakur into a jazz rap symphony that held up a mirror to America and dared us to look in it. When Damn arrived in 2017, Kendrick tightened the lens again. This time, it was internal. Sin, ego, pride, fear. He unpacked them like a preacher pulling sermons out of smoke, and the world listened. The Pulitzer Prize Committee did too, awarding him the first ever Pulitzer in Music for a hip-hop album. But what makes Kendrick different isn't just the accolades. It's the intent. He's never chased clout, never oversaturated the market, never danced for clicks. Kendrick plays the long game, and every album, every interview, every verse is planted with purpose. While some artists flood the internet for attention, Kendrick disappears for years, only to reemerge with something so potent it shifts the entire genre overnight. Even when he dropped Mr. Morale and The Big Steppers, an album filled with therapy, family trauma, and ancestral healing, it wasn't easy listening, but it was necessary listening. Kendrick risked sounding vulnerable, imperfect, even problematic, to tell the truth in a world addicted to masks. And now, here in 2025, Kendrick isn't just an artist. He's a symbol of what happens when integrity wins. When a man doesn't compromise his pen for a paycheck. When an artist refuses to dilute himself, even if it means standing alone. That's why his Toronto Takeover mattered so much, because it wasn't just a diss track being performed. It was the culmination of decades of discipline. He didn't need to scream or wear chains the size of dinner plates. He didn't need 50 dancers or a 3D light show. All he needed was a mic, a message, and a city ready to receive it. In that moment, Kendrick became something bigger than a rapper. He became a cultural compass, a reminder that lyricism isn't dead, that consciousness still has a place in music, that you can speak softly and still shake stadiums. And what's even more poetic? Kendrick never asked for the throne. He simply kept showing up with truth, and the throne followed him. What this means for hip-hop, the shift in power, loyalty, and legacy. When Kendrick Lamar performed Not Like Us in Drake's hometown, without a single diss word spoken between songs, he didn't just shake the arena, he shook the foundation of hip-hop loyalty and redefined what power looks like in a genre that too often confuses popularity with legacy. Let's break this down. For over a decade, Drake has occupied a unique space in rap. He's been the king of consistency, the crossover success story, the emotional maestro of a generation that grew up with one foot in therapy and the other on TikTok. His formula, introspective lyrics over catchy hooks, was once revolutionary. But somewhere along the way, the culture shifted. And Kendrick? He's never been interested in the formula. He's been committed to the message. That's what made this clash so fascinating. It wasn't just two rappers beefing. It was two philosophies of hip-hop colliding. Drake represents the current model, radio dominance, social media strategy, brand alignment, and crowd-pleasing precision. Kendrick represents the ancestral model, lyrical depth, cultural critique, emotional risk, and artistic integrity, even if it makes people uncomfortable. And here's the plot twist. The fans chose depth. In Toronto, at a Kendrick show, singing Not Like Us. That's not just surprising, that's paradigm shifting. For years, industry experts said that fans wanted surface level rap, that nobody had the attention span for lyrics with layers, that political commentary would ruin your streams, that black artists had to choose between relevance and resistance. But Kendrick proved all of that wrong. In real time, in real space, in Drake's own city. The reaction from the Toronto crowd wasn't just about music. It was about alignment. A growing generation of fans is no longer satisfied with catchy beats alone. They want meaning. They want soul. They want to feel something real. And this moment, Kendrick's performance, Drake's silence, the awkward DM to a politician, the lawsuits, the chants, has forced everyone in the industry to stop and look around. What happens when the king of hits starts feeling like the court jester and the poet becomes the monarch? It's a spiritual shift, a lyrical resurrection, a recentering of authenticity in a genre that's been commercialized into chaos. But let's be clear, this isn't the end of Drake. He's still a genius hitmaker, a business mogul, and a dominant force. What's changed is the way fans measure greatness. It's no longer just about Billboard stats or Grammy nominations. It's about the impact of your truth. It's about what you stand for when the mic is off. It's about whether your art can survive without the machine. Kendrick doesn't have a mega label machine behind him the way Drake does, but what he does have is respect, reverence. And in the streets, in the hearts of people who grew up using music as therapy, that currency holds more weight than gold chains and streaming plaques. So what does this mean for hip-hop? It means we're entering a new age, one where legacy will be earned, not bought, where fans will chant your lyrics, not just because they're catchy, but because they're sacred, where rap returns to its roots as a form of storytelling, protest, celebration, and healing. And Kendrick, he just became the face of that renaissance. He reminded us all, through one diss track, one performance, and one moment of silence, that truth is timeless. And when it's delivered with integrity, it doesn't just move crowds. It moves history. This isn't just the story of two rappers. This is a mirror held up to the culture. A moment that asked, what do we really value? Is it hits, streams, followers, and flashy features? Or is it message, artistry, and the courage to challenge an industry that often rewards imitation over innovation? Because what we just witnessed wasn't just a concert. It was a cultural referendum. And Kendrick didn't have to say Drake's name, because the truth echoed louder than any diss ever could. Now here we are. Kendrick Lamar, standing unbothered, unshaken, and possibly undefeatable. And Drake? Well, Drake is at a crossroads. The truth is, Drake is in a dangerous position. Not because he's not still brilliant, but because he's no longer untouchable. The charm, the mystery, the Teflon image, it's cracked. And not just by Kendrick's pen, but by Drake's own behavior. The petty DMs, the optics of ego, and the lawsuit that threatens to reveal a version of him the public was never meant to see. Now, we know how this game goes. Drake could drop a melodic banger tomorrow, and the charts would explode. He still has millions of fans, billions of streams, and the infrastructure to dominate any cycle. But here's what he may never recover: the emotional shift. Because when your own city sings your opponent's lyrics louder than yours, something has changed. And Kendrick? He's not chasing awards, headlines, or hit lists. He's creating moments that matter. He's anchoring himself in legacy, not likes. And that's why he keeps rising. Because in an era of constant performance, Kendrick remains rooted in presence. He's moved from poet to prophet, from artist to oracle. And whether he ever drops another diss track or not, the truth remains. He reminded us that hip-hop is still sacred, and that when you honor it with heart, it will return that honor in thunderous applause. So, where do we go from here? Drake will have to decide whether he wants to defend his throne or redefine it. He can't out-rap Kendrick. That much is clear. But he can evolve, heal, grow, and maybe come back. Not with vengeance, but with vulnerability. Real vulnerability. Not curated sadness behind filters, but a reckoning. If he chooses that, there's still hope for his story to take a powerful turn. And Kendrick? He doesn't need to do anything. Because sometimes the most powerful move in chess is to simply stand still and watch the board change around you. So here we are. A diss track birthed an earthquake. A performance in Toronto turned into testimony. And the crown? It didn't just shift, it glowed a little brighter in Compton. Whew. If your jaw's on the floor right now, just know you're not alone. Because what we witnessed wasn't just a performance or a petty moment on Instagram, it was history in the making. Kendrick Lamar reminded the world that the mic is still a sacred weapon. That truth, when delivered with intention, will always shake the room, no matter how deep the opposition runs. And as for Drake, he's got some reflecting to do. This isn't the end of him, but it might just be the beginning of something different. If he's willing to face himself, not just the charts. But let this episode be a reminder to you too. Don't be afraid to walk into places where they told you the crown already belonged to someone else. Sometimes your biggest breakthrough will happen right in the middle of someone else's empire. And if you're brave enough, bold enough, and honest enough, you just might make the whole kingdom clap for you. Keep your integrity. Sharpen your voice. And remember, real ones don't have to shout to be heard. They just have to stand in truth. Now, family, if this episode gave you life, made you laugh, or had you rewinding just to catch that bar, I want you to smash that like button, leave a comment, and most importantly, share this with your people. Let's keep the conversation going. Be sure to follow Life Points with Ronda on all platforms. Website, www.lifepointswithronda.com. Podcast, Life Points with Ronda, available on all major streaming apps. YouTube, Life Points with Ronda. Email, lifepointswithronda@gmail.com. Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, Life Points with Ronda. Patreon for bonus episodes, music, and real conversations. Life Points with Ronda. Until next time, remember this: you don't have to outshine anyone else to shine. Just be lit from within, and the rest will adjust. With love, with fire, and with lyrical freedom, this is Life Points with Ronda. And I'll see you next episode. Thank you for watching. If you found value in today's video, I invite you to take your journey even further with my podcast, Life Points with Ronda, where we dive deep into relationships, personal growth, and the wisdom that helps you thrive. Tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all major streaming platforms for powerful insights that can transform your life. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more uplifting content like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Stay connected with me on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon. Life Points with Ronda. Visit my website at lifepointswithronda.com for exclusive content, coaching, and more. Thank you for your support. Until next time, take care and stay phenomenal.